Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.
State Representative Rob Summerfield of Bloomer is a Republican seeking re-election in the 67th Assembly District. Rob, welcome back to WisconsinEye.
Well, thank you for having me again, Stephen.
The standard question I have for incumbents: if you're re-elected, your top priority next session, please.
Yeah, if re-elected, top priority is caring for the community. With COVID, the challenges that we don't know what's going to be 2 months from now, 3 months from now, making sure our businesses are able to be open, strive to, make a living. With the COVID, which really thing I'm also jumping on is broadband. Continuing work on the broadband expansion. This last week in the district, I had the opportunity to be at two events, one in Colfax, one in Cornell, that we, between the USDA new grant program, the state grant program, got over $4 million or almost $4.5 million in broadband expansion. And we're seeing it, especially now. I actually just got off the phone about an hour ago with a constituent who's about half a mile from where the existing fiber is, and there's a creek though. And he's talking to the telephone companies, and he said it's just not feasible at this point for what the grant program can reimburse. So these, that's one thing I'm starting to look into, having conversation with my colleagues and some of the companies, is this broadband grant program has been excellent. I mean, since I've been in office, almost $4 million in the 67th Assembly District since 2017. But there are challenges of, some of them, it only costs $15,000 to $25,000 per mile to lay fiber. Some areas about $40,000, $50,000. And when you only have one house in that mile stretch for $50,000, it's hard at $100 a month for internet charges that the phone company can charge to make that back. So we're looking into, maybe is there something we can prioritize, or other pots of money with DPI, just with schools, potentially going back and forth virtual homeschooling, to look in that. And then finally continue work on healthcare. This last budget made huge strides with nursing homes, personal care workers, and hospitals. And I know even now with COVID now and everything else that's going on, especially with nursing homes, rural nursing homes, these are things that are going to be the top priority for myself in the next 2 years.
Rob, we've got more than 920 people in Wisconsin hospitalized with COVID. Hospitals are on the front lines of treating this virus. In the next budget, do you think hospitals deserve to be an even greater priority than they might be in the current one?
Yeah, I mean, this last budget, I know the hospitals have worked really closely with the Hospital Association with their funding. I know they're pleased with the budget at the final, after the budget was signed, when we went through all the work on it. Going forward, I've worked very closely. I've got three major hospitals: HSHS, Sacred Heart, St. Joe's in Chippewa, Eau Claire, Marshfield Clinic, and Mayo Clinic in Eau Claire and Chippewa and Bloomer, actually, throughout the district. So I look forward to seeing what their needs are. I mean, I think at this right now, it's hard to say what, until they say, hey, Rob, this is something I think we need. Let's sit down and, explain, hey, this is something I can jump on board. So I know that's going to be a big part of the conversation going into the budget talks in January, February.
You've got your own business and you've been a part of your parents' small business. Here's my question. Have you signed on to Representative Bourne's bill that says if you're a business, a charity, a nonprofit, and you follow COVID-19 protocols, you couldn't be sued over COVID? Is that something you're supporting?
Yes, I support it, just because not even for my own businesses, but for numerous business people and nonprofits reach out to me, throughout this last 6 months with these very concerns. So when Representative Bourne put the bill out there, I talked to Mark and said, yeah, I'm definitely on board with it. I know that's a step. I know we are hoping for something on the federal legislation, but that's kind of seems to be bogged down now. So this is a thing that the state needs to jump on.
What about the governor's initiatives? Number one, the masks, which he wants to extend until November 21 in enclosed areas, and the 25% occupancy. Do you support both those, Rob?
At this point, I mean, the mask was just had the court ruling, half an hour ago.
Yeah.
In the state of Wisconsin. Those are things. The mask mandate is definitely a very a very passionate issue on both sides of my district. People have sent me numerous studies saying, masks, we have concerns for long-term health, etc. So those are one of those that I think that we need to look into, take concerns of everybody. I wear a mask for most part if I'm out and about. So, these are things, I know WMC came out this week, encouraging it. I think that's the best way to go. Government mandates are always tricky because then you have people who, feel a government overreach. And I think the way he's going about this, I think the executive orders are illegal. I think he needs to go through the proper rule process and have it go that way. With the 25% rule, that's the same thing again. I think it's an illegal order that, today, later on today, it's going to go through the committee on rules or administrative rules today to, I think, 3:00 to, treat it as a rule. I wish the governor would go through the rule process because then that gives ourselves in legislature voice in the matter. Because after this week, Tuesday, when the order came down, I had numerous business owners calling me. Two of them are basically crying, saying, Rob, at 25%, we can't operate. It's been a long 7 months as is. We're doing the protocols. We're doing as much as we can. And, people still are coming out. It's never been in great numbers since, COVID hit. So they're just starting to survive. I mean, you even see Milwaukee, the city of Milwaukee is, which is a very Democratic city, Democratic mayor, is not going by the governor's order because they feel that they have their own protocols. And I think that's where we should be going on this. If certain counties are in a hot spot and they feel the health departments, mayors, local government say, hey, this is something that we should look into or we should have a local level, because the same thing for Chippewa County, Dane County, Milwaukee, when you get into 25%, we're all a little different throughout the state. So I don't think a statewide approach for this issue is the best.
The Federal Reserve just said that in the second quarter, Wisconsin's GDP was off 8%. That raises the questions about whether our tax collections in the current fiscal year, I'm going to make up a number, if we're $1 billion short in tax collections, how would you make up that shortfall, Rob?
Yeah, and I'm optimistic because I think when the Fiscal Bureau came out in August, saying since we reopened in May, overturned the governor's safe-at-home orders, our tax collections weren't as bad as what they are. Quarter two would have been April, May, and June, so we had all of April's lost money, half of May, and really May businesses, I know, didn't really get rolling till about the 20th of May, because if I recall, I think it was overturned on the 14th, so I had one, month. So be looking at the forecast for July, August, September to see where we're at. I really think us reopening state's going to lessen the blow to our budget. In the situation you mentioned, if we are $1 billion shortfall with our rainy day fund and our surplus, I think we were sitting at last around 800 million-ish. So, doing the math, you're looking about 200 million deficit. I'm optimistic that hopefully it won't be that bad, but those are things that are going to be challenged with COVID. And that's why it's so important that to weigh, the real issues of COVID, how COVID has devastated families, and people who get sick, lose time off work, but we also we need to have an economy working so we can fund, like we mentioned, I think in the second question, our hospitals, our schools. So it's a very delicate balancing act right now, and I look forward to over the budgeting that the Republicans have done since 2010, that we are sitting in a good place. But yeah, like you mentioned, in 3 months we can lose 8%, and another 3 months could keep on going. So it's going to be a challenging budget coming this January, February.
How do you respond to the Democrats when they put out press releases saying Republican legislators like you haven't met or passed the bill in 170 days? I was just curious.
Yeah.
What's your response?
Yeah, my response is in April we did the bipartisan CARES Act bill for the federal government. allowing the $2 billion allocated funds and reworking some statutes to give the governor more flexibility. He still has money in front of him to spend. I've always told people I'm open to any suggestion if they think we need to come in, do this. At this point, when the money runs out, this is hard because our budget, Stephen, we do a budget for every 2 years. So we're kind of locked into our budget. So I know a lot of the concerns I've had talking to my school districts, especially, is we've got this money set aside for now that goes through June 30th of 2021. So we're, doing okay, but we don't know what a month's going to now look like. So if there are things that need to be popped up, more than willing to say, hey, look into it and go, may take legislation to do it.
The whole debate nationally in Kenosha over policing reforms, Speaker's going to form a task force. Senator Van Wangard's got 7 or 8 bills. The governor's got 9 bills. The Black Caucus has bills. Are there any specific policing reforms that you think should be enacted into law?
Law enforcement is not my background, but since I've been in office, I have a great working relationship with both my sheriffs and police chiefs throughout the district. I've talked to a few of them about this. When the first proposal came out from the governor, about his reforms, the chokeholds, etc. And a lot of them have said, they did wade through it, and they think, for the most part, we do most of this stuff already, or don't do most of the stuff, we teach it. The no-knock search warrant, I know, nationally that's been, in the front with the Breonna Taylor. The concern I have with getting rid of no-knocks, because first of all, no-knocks, you have to go through a separate warrant process with the judge just to get a specific no-knock. And in our area, with the meth outbreak, meth, we're still dealing with meth epidemic on top of everything else right now. With drug dealers is, you knock on the door, a drug dealer usually has a gun or some sort of weapon right next to them. That gives them 10 seconds, and that 10 seconds could be, devastating for the officers involved and deadly. So, those things I think we need to really look into. If there is conclusive saying, hey, that no-knocks are definitely in no situation, I think that's something we need to look into, but I think I've got very big concerns about that. The other bills, I think the big thing is, mental health of officers. This is something that I know mental health has really been talking about for the last about 10 years, and now we're seeing it. Police officers are just not only law enforcement. A lot of times they're the social worker, they're the parent, they're the teacher in the situations, and it's got to be weighing on a lot of these officers when they go into drug infested homes. Kids, I've heard stories, kids haven't had their diaper changed in a day or two, these very heartbreaking things, and they're human beings. So we need to support them as much as we can, on these issues. And if there's some things that could help them do their job, I think most everybody's been in agreement on to look into it. So with the Speaker's task force, these are things that, when the governor put out a slate of bills, he expected us to act in a week. In my thoughts, these are issues that we need to take long and hard. And that's why I'm encouraging the Speaker's task force. Sounds going to be like it's going to be quite a large task force to sit down and have an open discussion. Law enforcement, community groups, legislators, county executives, the whole statewide, to make sure that we sit down, have a great conversation to see what we can do better for the state of Wisconsin.
As states around Wisconsin legalize medical and recreational marijuana, what's your position, please?
Medical marijuana is still very hesitant. I did sign on to Representative Fikowski's bill this last year. Because I've talked to numerous people, not numerous, but a few that have went through this situation, that they have a loved one in absolute pain, nearing the end, and they don't want to have them on morphine, on very addictive, powerful, mind, altering drug that kind of puts them out. That, I think there's a role for medical marijuana, and for chronic pain too. If someone, I know back pain, that's one of the big ones. A lot of people, back pain. These are situations that I think medical marijuana needs to be looked at. That's why I signed on to Mary's bill. I wish we'd get a little more momentum on it, and I look forward to this next session. I think we'll get there'll be even more momentum to look at. But the thing is, whenever you go down with medical marijuana, we have to make sure we're doing it correctly, seeing what other states, what has worked, what hasn't worked for that.
Okay. The Governor's People's Maps Commission had its first meeting. Who should draw the next set of congressional and legislative district lines?
I think we're going to go through what we've gone through since the beginning time, a bill and basically submitted to form the legislature votes on it and sends to the governor. I think that's the way we'll be doing it.
Okay. We're a high property tax state, which is why schools and local governments have been living with caps and limits on property taxes for more than 20 years. If you're voting on the next budget, should those caps and limits stay in place to hold down property taxes on homes?
I mean, that's always, I think since I'm in office, I've always been open to those conversations. However, since Governor Evers got elected, I know one of the biggest concerns from my office reaching out was people's property taxes going up. The caps were put in place in the 2000s for a reason. Is it time now to look on different ways to do the funding, get rid of the caps or slightly lift them in certain situations? I think since my last 4 years in office, we've had a lot of discussions on that, and that's something definitely open to, and especially talking to my local municipality to see what they need and what's a workable solution. So I feel that will be part of the discussion this next budget to see, if it is needed, and if it is, how do we do it correctly without putting a bigger tax burden on people in the state of Wisconsin.
Is one option giving cities, towns, and villages new alternative revenue sources? I guess I'm referring to Representative Goyke's bill. If Milwaukee passed a referendum, it could levy a half-cent sales tax. Is it time to consider alternative sources of revenue for local governments so they're not so reliant on the property tax?
I mean, I think that's a good conversation that we've had. I've discussed with other lawmakers too. Even use a 0.5% sales tax for just pure transportation within your county. I know I've had a few county board members discuss that, and I think that's the problem is how would we have them issue it? Would it go towards a referendum? Would it just be a county board decision? Those are things I think. Leave it up to people, in Chippewa and Dunn County if they want to raise their taxes. I know the argument for using the 0.5% sales tax is instead of relying on the DOT in Madison for fund our projects, because how that works is we all submit our funding to get LRIP programs, etc. And then sometimes your area loses out. This one would just stay in our district. So, I mean, I think those are things I've been willing to sit down and discuss. I know there hasn't been as much movement, but I think with Representative Goyke's and stuff, there's something I'm very open to looking into.
Last year, the governor wanted to raise the gas tax to stabilize how we pay for highways and bridges. Mm-hmm. Could you vote to raise the gas tax?
I've already said, I think since I've been in office, this I think my fourth interview here, and this is probably the fourth time I've had the question. Always open to anything. The issue though with the gas tax is with vehicles being more fuel efficient. Mm-hmm. There's only so much a gas tax can go, because when you go into electric vehicles, they use no gas at all. I mean, I got a truck a year and a half ago, and my truck gets 19 miles per gallon in town and 25 on the highway. My old one was getting 13 and 18. You can just see the math there. The more and more driving back and forth to Madison, you're seeing the Teslas. They're paying no gas tax at all. So, in the short term, would maybe gas tax need to be discussed for the short-term funding? But I mean, I think we all agree in 6 years from now, the gas tax is going to be even lesser of importance because we're going to get more and more electrics and the hybrid. So that's where I think needs to be the big discussion, which we did last budget, try and put the study in for miles traveled.
Yeah.
Miles
traveled, yes.
Yeah, then the governor vetoed that out, because I think if you keep on kicking that one down the road, we're going to be sitting down, 6 years from now, basically relying on our funding for roads on gas tax and registration. And if gas tax is kind of going down, especially now too, with COVID, with people not traveling as much, not as staying at home to work, we're going to have to look at alternatives.
Okay. When a school district or local government plans a major public works project, should they have to give a preference to Wisconsin businesses, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the nuances. That's where you have to weigh both. Protecting the cost, the taxpayers, but also helping local businesses. So those are things that I prefer always to have locally based. But I know there are always situations where your local base, there is no local base, or the local base is the gaps are way big, are too large to justify it. So I think those are the challenges in it. I'm encouraging, I want to do as much as Wisconsin, but to mandate it, those are ones that if we can figure out a smart way to do it, I don't know if it would be a formula, such use a formula into it to make sure we're protecting taxpayers, but also helping Wisconsin businesses.
And differences between you and your opponent on November 3?
Yeah. Since I've been in office since 2017, I know the hundreds, probably 1,000 phone calls I've made, emails, talking to constituents. People know me around this area. I've grown up here. I went to school in Bloomer, heart of the district. I went to college in UW Stout, right on the outskirts of the district. I mean, being here 40 years of my life, being in the family supper club. Since I've been 14 years old, I have 26 years. I own a business, the title company in Bloomer. My connections throughout the district are great. I think people have realized that even if you don't always agree with Rob, that he'll at least talk to you. And I feel that I've done a great job sitting down, listening, and fighting for our community. I mean, I work in the district, live in the district, raise my family, send my kids to the public schools. So I've been going down there fighting. The things which I've mentioned in this interview, what we've done for nursing homes, broadband, hospital. We didn't even get into the telehealth expansion, which I was very instrumental of getting that through, allowing people to get their doctor's appointments from home. And these are just small things that we've done that I know we're going to build on and make it really, really great for the 67th Assembly District if I get elected in 3 weeks.
State Representative Rob Summerfield of Bloomer is a Republican seeking re-election in the 67th Assembly District. The election is November 3. Rob, thank you for talking to WisconsinEye. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Have a good day. Thanks.
Yeah.
Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.